Welcome, guys, to calendar week 34. This is CSV Cafe News Week. Welcome to the first episode, and we're going to start off already with calendar week 34, which was last week. I will be providing you, my name is Justo, with the news currently in the area of FDA and computer software validation. Why? Because no one knows how to translate this shit, and I'm going to bring it to you. So, guys, we have a little bit of a busy week. It's been pretty busy within the FDA and the EMA. I put some slides together for us to look at, and I will actually like to show those to you. And we're going to go and talk about those topics, hopefully bringing you some of the news so you don't have to go in and read it yourself. If you ever have any questions, please don't hesitate to comment below. Reach me and ask me any questions you like regarding the topic, or if you're just bored and you want to say hello. Again, I have been doing this for over 2 decades, and I want to make sure that I can bring this topic to you in the least dry, so a little bit of sprinkle of wetness into this dry topic, and possibly help you get your week going regarding computers software validation, FDA, EMA, data integrity, laboratory files, and all that wonderful, great stuff that you might be running into this week. If you've stumbled across this channel and you're still wondering what you're doing here, pull up a chair, hang out, and maybe there is something you might learn regarding the pharmaceutical industry and how they manage their governance and compliance around information systems. So if you are an IT geek or you like data and how data is controlled, again, you might have found yourself the place to be. And I am now going to share my screen, and you should be able to see the presentation. Hope you do. So, calendar week 34. This is CSV Cafe Weekly News. Again, my name is Justo Espinoza. I will be your host, and from time to time, I would bring in my co-host, Linda. So when she comes back with her coffee, she'll be jumping in and hanging out and talking to us about the week. So, like I said, there was some lab records that were found within a FDA inspection. This is covering the week of the 17th to the 23rd of August, so it was last week. Things might have changed, and we will do our best to give you a little bit of a weekly update, quickly and dirty, but of course using some slides. And if you want a copy of this, please write to me in the comments. And if you send me a comment, I will be happy to send you a PDF of these slides. So what's going on? So the big story, FDA, there was a discussion paper regulating generative artificial intelligence and in enabled medical devices, including agentic AI. So AI is still in the front of the mind. AI is still being discussed. But again, AI is also being utilized and people are testing it. And there are bold companies out there that are starting to bring it in within their process, and they're starting to take advantage of the guidances that are coming out, and as well as the annexes that are out there, like Annex 22, and as well any other information that's coming out from the regulatory. So keep an eye out that. We will also keep an eye on it and bring you, CSV Cafe will bring you as much coffee and espresso regarding this topic. So the digital health world, digitally derived measures must be fit for purpose. So any type of measurements, I would say digitally derived. So any type of equipment in the digital health world needs to be verified, needs to be validated for its intended use. If you do not know what that means, you're in the right place. Comment below, and I'll be happy to send you something regarding the intended use of digital health. Then from there, we have a warning letter within a laboratory area, and there was some lab records that had some repetitive testing. We'll talk a little bit about the EMA watch within Annex 22. So there was no Annex 22 publication per se this week, but there is the continuation of that draft and the continuation discussions. And if you have any questions on that, again, you can always comment below, and I can always point you to those right people that would give you much more in-depth understanding in that topic. So moving on, again, the news has been busy. The FDA is basically taking considerations for the regulation of generative AI-enabled medical devices. So there are some considerations being done. There's a discussion paper from the FDA Center for Disease and Radiological Health. So the CDRH, they just published on 18th of August a discussion paper. So if you are in the generative AI and the AI agentic, try to say that 10 times with a coffee in your hand. You might spill it, but if you are in that area, there is a discussion paper out there. You just go into the FDA website and or as well look link below, which I'll have it for you. Be involved, look at what they're talking about regarding AI, and then you're able to adapt your theories and your tests and what you're bringing into your organization regarding this type of technology. So always make sure that you are following their regulations. There's a lot of discussions regarding this topic. You can always keep up with Justo at CSV Cafe, and you can always keep up with others that are out there in the market. And if you don't know who, please start with me, and I can help you move forward with that. So, as importance, read them, understand what they're trying to provide to the industry. So those draft guidances are as important as if you would pick up a guidance. The questions the FDA is asking these days, right? Risk classification. So if you're looking at how should your generative AI devices be classified? Well, risk classifications, guys. That's something very, very important. What evidence demonstrates that your generative system works? Generative system is working, right? You got to do some type of pre-market evaluations, right? Some other questions that they're looking at is your post-market monitoring. So how do you oversee changes to that model? So think about it as a IT system, but this time it's artificial intelligence. You always want to plan. If you haven't seen my episodes in the past, I go into this a little bit into specifics, into the basics of the V model where you plan foundation models. They're asking questions of your assurance, right? So everything I just mentioned, how are you doing that? How is the device manufacturer doing this within their models? Not just build it and just kind of put it into a release mode. And as well as look at generative artificial intelligence, the outputs, right? How did the outputs differentiate during runs? And what does that mean within your verification process? So if you guys are in a tech area and you're already working with agentic AI and you're working with artificial intelligence within your processes, these are some questions in the areas that the FDA is already beginning to ask. This also, I would always say, applies to European medicinal medicine authorities as well as they work close hand to hand. The next thing, so his first story was agentic AI and artificial intelligence and those discussion papers, those discussions coming out. Let's look at digital measurements. So this is the second thing that's being discussed last week regarding digital measurements that need to be fit for purpose, meaning measurements generated from data collected via digital health technologies in the clinical investigations, wearables, sensors, connected devices, algorithms. The FDA standards apparently verified and validated for the intended context of use. So fit for purpose. So if you guys are not validating those sensors or actually qualifying and those sensors and qualifying connected devices, maybe even qualifying and validating algorithms, all that stuff needs to be done within your clinical investigation realm. Okay, I'm not a clinical investigation officer. I'm just here bringing you the news. So please make sure that you have that in place. If you do not know where to start when it comes to quality and validation or regards to qualification and validating or validating instruments or qualifying instruments, then write a comment below. Guys, let's go to the warning letter, the FDA warning letter that happened. It was a company, unfortunately to them, Auriga Research. They're a contract testing laboratory. Their location is India. And on the 12th of August, there was they had this reporting window that surfaced in FDA's recent posting cycle. So 5 findings basically you'll find here. There where they had incomplete original data, they had non-contemporaneous records, they had weak documentation practices. So basically, they weren't following good documentation practices. It looked like they weren't able to bring in proper kind ALCOA plus principles, data integrity principles within their environment, within their laboratory. They weren't complete, so they weren't able to complete the original data and where that was derived from. They basically had different testing that was done, repeatable testing, which was questionable. So it looks like they were trying to maybe, let's say, for falsify certain testing. So yeah, so this was their warning letter, and basically what happened there. This is very important for all of you in the laboratory environment, and if you are in a GxP laboratory environment, you've got to make sure you follow the data integrity and ALCOA plus principles. But testing and compliance is not a methodology, right? So you can't just test, fail, test again, fail, test again. Hey, it's passed, right? You need to ensure what was tested, why it failed. You need to figure out what was a failure, document that failure, especially when it involves a high GxP area within the laboratory environment or in the GMP side. So that's just a no-no. And again, this company was hit within this. So last and not least was the Annex 22. Can we use AI? No. What conditions can AI be trusted in? There's those discussions happening. So there is no new Annex 22 publication that week. However, feedback on earlier drafting was challenged, whether dynamic or probabilistic artificial intelligence, including generative AI and larger language models, should simply be excluded from critical good manufacturing practice. Guys, they're trying to say, all right, is AI, generative AI, is large language models, should we exclude this? Or should we consider it? And if we do, so the EMA is discussing this, and then they're now considering risk-based controls and guardrails instead of a blanket exclusion. So that's a good thing. They're not excluding it. So keep in mind, it's not being excluded, but they are wanting to keep up with, okay, how do we keep those guardrails up and ensure that the system's not hallucinating, and then we always have that outcome that we want, especially within the big generative AIs and large language models. Right now, a lot of you probably work with AI at a very basic level, but imagine if your artificial intelligence is now looking at valves and making a decision if that valve is out of spec from the requirements or the specifications, and then that makes a mistake, goes out to the world, and your grandma injects the wrong fluids in her body. Hey, that's the risk. So that's why there's a lot of discussions within generative AI, large language models, to make sure that if you have a process like that, it is controlled. Human in loop. So can we use AI in GMP? To under what conditions can AI be trusted in the good manufacturing practice world? Guys, that's your news for last week. I'm not going to continue with all the slides. There is 18 slides in this deck. I did not go over all the information. If you want all 18 slides, just send me a comment below and I'll be happy to send it to you. Thank you for watching CSV Cafe. Linda couldn't make it today. I guess she called out sick. AI sometimes needs to take a rest. Guys, have a nice week, and I'll see you on the next weekly update.